Hello, everyone. Uh, Thank you for joining me today. This is actually the first lesson in PrivIQ application. And what we're going to talk about today will be we'll cover the homepage and talk a little bit about the various relationships between the various features. And then we will go into a bit of a deep dive on data mapping. So it should go without saying that it's important to understand whichever regulation you try to comply with. Only then will you get a full appreciation for the power behind PrivIQ and how PrivIQ will enable you to implement and maintain your data protection compliance program. And I guess it's with with any regulation, with any sort of subject matter that you're trying to use some sort of application to manage. Anyway, enough with that. Let's look a little bit at the homepage. So it really depends on which regulation you are complying with, because you might be aware that PrivIQ covers many templates across the world. What we're looking at here is the GDPR template. And, if you navigate to your own account, you might be looking at LGPD in Brazil or in POPIA in South Africa, whichever the case is. But what I wanted to say was that the look and feel and the functionality is identical. Where there might be differences, for example, with PDPA in Thailand, might not specifically mention a data protection officer, or they might mention it, but there aren't there isn't many sort of guidance around how to appoint and what a DPO, what a DPO's qualifications are, etc. So you won't, for example, see a specific feature that relates to the DPO, but you might see, for example, in the control space, you might see something mentioned about DPO. But other than that, everything else is the same. In South Africa, for example, they don't call them processors, they call them operators, and a controller in South Africa is known as the responsible party. So you'll see that terminology when you work with those particular templates. Okay, so starting from the top, in the case of the GDPR template, the EU GDPR, this is where you determine whether you need to or want to appoint a data protection officer. This real-time audit really is a report that you can run on all of the features within the solution. And you can actually manage sort of real-time maintenance. So, for example, you could go from the real-time audit directly into a particular control and manage those checklists. And then you can also monitor the progress or otherwise of that particular maintenance of of the control checklists. The other thing you can do is you can run auto-run monthly reports, and then you can use the information there to actually check your monthly trends in terms of how your program is progressing. Here's where we manage the control. So this is where we manage the ongoing risk and the ongoing compliance. So we've got a set of checklists here that, and you can actually add your own checklist as well. A lot of our users actually do that. This is where you need to start building the foundation. In the data mapping, you start to put together what is called an inventory of processing of personal data. And, where we answer the questions, the who, the where, the why, the what of processing of personal data. This is a report that you can run, again, to show you the progress of your compliance. And you can also download that information to either to PDF or to Excel. Okay, so once your data mapping is complete, at least complete in the sense that you believe you've captured all of the purposes where you are processing personal data. Then you need to manage what is called a record of processing activities. That's automatically updated by the data mapping. You also manage your privacy notices, and we've got different types of privacy notices. And then we also have a default set of policies and other documents that you can use, in terms of training and awareness of your employees. And then you actually communicate that to the employees there. If you identify any processes, especially when you're doing the data mapping, you manage that relationship there, because with the processor, you've got to have a valid contract in place with that processor. And then if you're disclosing personal data for any of the processing in the data mapping, you would manage the relationship with those other controllers here. And then we come to the good old data subject access requests. If you're familiar with the regulation, uh, data subjects need to have access to their personal data, and you manage the responses to those requests here. This is where you manage your responses to any incidents that might involve personal data. And this is where you actually run and run your risk assessments. And then we've got a dashboard, and we've got the ability to extract certain features to Excel in case you want to start building your business reports. And then the rest of them really are shortcuts to what you see on the homepage. Okay, the other thing to be aware of is that we've got essentially three types of users. The users are managed up here under users. It's only the administrator that can access this section, but the administrator is the first type of user who has all access. Then we also have task owners who manage tasks, for example, here in the control space. And then we have a power user. Now, the power user, you can assign any combination of any of the features that you see here. So that is quite useful, because you might have someone that's only doing data mapping for HR, and you can actually drill down to that level and give that person access. Or you might have someone that's only able to run a risk assessment, and you can give a person or user specific access to that. So yeah, that is as much as we need to cover for. Okay, this is one other thing. When you sign in, you click below your name, and you can go directly to the tasks that have been assigned to you, and you can actually manage them directly in there as well. Okay. Then just touch briefly on the multi-factor authentication. If I click here, it takes me back to that space where I can actually go and set up, either use an authentication application or a one-time password. So that's where you go and set it up if you're looking for this particular screen. Okay, so let's go into data mapping. As I mentioned, the data mapping is where we build that inventory. It's an important first step because there are a number of features that actually depend on data mapping, like building your ROPA, your record of processing, as well as your privacy notices. It also informs your data subject access requests. So important to do the data mapping first. Okay, so let's just go into data mapping and we'll look at some examples. All right, so throughout you will see these blue text boxes. It's quite easy to ignore them, but many a time you'll find that there's very useful information in there. So I will actually just close it for now, and when you refresh, it will come back again. So let's look at this. So here we've got three tabs. We've got the data mapping itself, and then we've got the collection sources. So this is where we say, for all the personal data types that we've captured in the data mapping, what is the collection? So where are we collecting that from? Okay. And then we have an export import fully validated spreadsheet that you can use to maintain your data mapping, and also useful if you migrating your data mapping from perhaps another solution, or even from spreadsheets that you might be using. Okay. And then we have a filter here. So once you start building up, you might end up with 20, 30, 50 rows of data mapping. It makes it a lot easier just to use the filter to target the particular department or data subject type that you're looking at. All right. So let's see here. So what we need to do is I'm going to create a new line of data mapping, and you'll see that we've got some text in red. Now that the red text is actually custom. So, for example, when I wanted to add a department called healthcare, if I looked in the drop down, I didn't see healthcare. And you can see that I've added it, and that is editable. It's a custom item, so it is editable. So that's to explain what the red text is about. Okay, so let's look at the first line. So what shall we do? Let's take an example of where we have employees who belong to a union, and we need to pay membership fees to the union. Okay, so I'm going to add them. The obvious department would be HR. So I've added HR there, and the data subject type is for our employees. And the processing purpose, let's first see. I don't think we have anything for union membership fees here. No, so let's add it. Okay, and this particular account that I'm using is also translated to those three European languages there. So I would need to add the translation. So let's just say union membership fees. Okay, what does it translate to in Spanish, Dutch, and Italian? Okay, right. Let's save that. Okay, so now we've got union membership fees. Now, what is the lawful basis? Probably not because we have a contract with the data subject. It might be that we have to comply with a legal obligation. I think that would be more appropriate. And then we add this line now. This is the first part of the data mapping. Okay, so now we see we've gone to the next step, and it's telling us that we've got some unmapped items here. Essentially, what we want to do is we want to complete this until it's fully validated. So the first thing it's asking us is for the retention period. Now, how long do we keep that personal data that we use to to pay over the union membership fees? Okay, so I'm not familiar with that, but let's just say that it could be until the contract is completed with the company. Or it might be some other thing that's stipulated by the unions, or perhaps some other lawful body, legal body. Let's just say, for example, it's 5 years post exit or something to that effect. Okay, and this is just an example. All right, so we've got that line in. So you see now that we've got that, we've now dropped down to two items. We must have at least one personal data type or special category personal data type. Okay, so let's just say for this particular purpose, what are we doing? We are using the employee name, I would say. Let's just see, employee, um, oh, definitely ID number, name, and let's just say, let's add another thing called membership number. Number, and again, we need to translate. Okay. All right, so that's sufficient for purposes of demonstration, I guess. I want to point out something here, which I've seen some users. So here's where if we're processing any special category types, and normally your regulation will stipulate what those special category types are. So this is all to do with sensitive information. But you see here at the bottom, it's got trade union membership. This is only if you're a trade union, you would actually use this particular special category type. What we're talking about here is the payment of union membership fees. Okay. So I just thought I'd point that out. But in any case, to pay over union membership fees, I don't think we are using any personal special category or sensitive personal data. So I'm going to skip that one for now. If we do add anything here, it will ask you for the lawful basis. Normally it's because you comply with the conditions for processing sex or health life or, or even trade union membership. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the next one. Now we've dropped to one. It says we must have at least one processing location. Okay. So let's go to the processing location. And you'll see we've got two tabs here. So this information asset, sometimes it's called location in other templates. This is really asking where do we process the personal data for that purpose internally within the organization. Okay. Now here is what we like to tell our users is these are just general, very high level sort of clues as to where you might be processing the personal data internally in the organization. Um, I would suggest you stay away from using something like application server. And the reason I'm saying this is because whatever you add here will inform your data subject access, right? And if someone is responding to a DSAR, as they call it, and they see that, for this particular purpose, which is the subject of the access request, and if we said application server here, is not going to mean much, if anything, to the person that's processing the DSAR, right? So um, you know, rather add some detail here and say, for example, it might be in an internal application called, let's just say, for want of a better description, maybe it's called our HR system, right? So again, just for purposes of demonstration, and I'm going to save that. Okay. Right. And then, so now you see that we are perfectly fine. However, let's just say that we were using a data processor to process that. Then we would add that processor here. When we add the processor here, it automatically creates the form under processes, and then we need to go and maintain that form, which will be the subject of the next lesson. All right. If the processor was part of the usual, like the AWSs and the Microsoft of this world, you could actually use this to select that particular processor here. Okay. Now, essentially, we are done. In this particular example, it's likely that we're going to be sharing the personal data of the employees with another controller. And that controller is probably going to be whatever trade union it is. Okay, so let's just say, well, there is one there already added there for the employment insurance. Let's add the union, and we're going to call it the trade union, and let's just call it a trade union recipient type, and then we'll say membership fees or something. Okay, and let's say, where is this now? Let's say that it's in Austria, which is in the EU, and we'll click save. And that in turn now has created a form called Acme Trade Union in the data sharing space. Okay, so we're done with the data mapping tab. What we still need to do is, you see, it's not complete. There's the union membership fee, so the status is not complete. We need to go to the collection sources. And remember, it was for HR, and it was an employee. Okay, and it was the membership fee. Membership number, beg your pardon, that we now need to go and add. And let's just say this is where we're collecting it from. Now, in this case, we could be collecting it from the union, possibly. If it was, we would need to see if a union exists here, or maybe whatever other institution, and then we'd need to click under third party, and then the third party category would be, trade union. It just needs to be a general category. Let's just say in this case, we're collecting it directly from the employee, and it could be via email, it could be via online form, yeah. But let's just say that it is from the online form again, just to demonstrate. So what we need to do is click save. Now you can see we can try and validate it. Let's just see what the outcome is. Oh, everything is okay. So that's essentially what we're looking for in terms of completeness. Okay, so just to re just to refresh, with the data mapping, it's essentially two steps where we need to add the first level, and then we go to the next level, make sure we've captured everything there, and then we go through to the collection sources and add the collection sources. Okay, so I wanted to also show you that with data mapping, you can actually visualize the data mapping. So if I click here, visualize, okay, and you can actually collapse it, and then you can view any particular department that you want to. All right. And then you can do the same with the collection sources. Okay. And then one final thing again to show you the filter. So if we look at HR, okay, and we could actually just filter on that processing purpose called membership fees, and that's what it brings up. So that's essentially what I wanted to cover today. I'm hoping you will get some value out of it, and feel free to watch it as many times as you want. Then what we will do is in the following section, we're going to cover the governance, and we'll learn how to communicate with the employees. But before we do that, we'll look to see the impact of the data mapping on the processes as well, and the data sharing where we are sharing with the other controllers. Okay, so thank you very much, and see you the next time.